Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on three. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today and let us surprise you.
Hey everyone, welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Amy. Today I'm talking to Tidy Dad, also known as Tyler Moore. He is a New York City teacher, father of 3, and the author of the new book, Tidy Up Your Life, a guide for anyone feeling overwhelmed by mental or physical clutter. With practical steps for rethinking organization, Tyler helps readers reclaim their spaces to focus on what truly matters. Welcome, Tyler.
Thanks for having me. And I love that introduction and that you called me Tidy Dad first and Tyler second. It's so funny because so many followers, they're like, I know you as Tidy Dad and I don't actually know your name. And then when I find out your name, that it's Tyler, just the T and the T, like it does help to keep things tidy. Like it's,
Tyler Tidy Dad. That's right.
It works. It works.
That was good branding by you. So, Tyler, you, just in case our listeners don't follow you on social media, you are the father to 3 young daughters. And so you have a family of 5. You've lived in New York City for over 15 years. And how many square feet does your family of 5 live in?
We're in 750 square feet. And my daughters are 9 and 7 and 4. And so from a parenting perspective, I still feel like we're really in the thick of it, but yet we've somehow navigated that newborn, toddler, preschool stage. We're now into that middle stage of parenthood where the girls are getting a little bit older, a little bit more independent, but still just as needy as ever. I don't know if you ever grow out of that neediness, but
the equipment, like the pack and plays and the walkers and like the jumpies, the seats and like some of that stuff, which I imagine takes up a lot of room in a New York City apartment.
Yeah. And so I feel like it is nice. A lot of people asked us when we finally got rid of the crib, they were like, don't you feel just so sad? And there was that like bittersweet moment briefly. And then as soon as we like got it out of the apartment, it was like, oh my gosh, there's so much space. And we just did the same thing with our daughter's play kitchen that they were like, I think we're ready to move it out. And I had a similar feeling. There is that emotional weight that we sometimes put with stuff, especially with kids. There's this rite of passage that an object can sort of, it just holds that value. And so my wife and I, we like packed it up and moved it out. And as we were marching it down the stairs, we had this moment of, can you believe that this stage is over? But then when we walked back in and we saw the space, we were like, but in the same respect, it's nice for this next stage to start to unfold and develop. There's that tension that we feel often as parents. And when it comes to decluttering or tidying up our spaces, there's so much emotional weight that we can sometimes put with these objects. But I am learning that I have to acknowledge those feelings, allow myself to feel the weight of the moment as we're making this decision, but then recognize that that item served its purpose and it's time to make space for what's to come next.
Oh, that's interesting. And the book is very much about that. I feel like that there is an emotional element underpinning this, and that you undergo an emotional process while you're tidying up. And it doesn't have to be a, terrible one, but it is, you're not a bad person if you have a hard time letting go of your kids' play kitchen, right? That's a normal part of this decluttering process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's why I feel like with the book, it's organized into two parts. There's tidy up your mind, and then there's tidy up your space. And I feel like that order is so important because oftentimes we can try to reverse it and we think, okay, if I just get everything in the house put away and everything tidy again, then everything else in life is just going to magically fall into place. And while yes, being in a tidy space can help you feel better, I do feel like me personally, and I know for so many people, that I really had to sit with the mess that really sort of was my life. And I'm not just talking about a physical mess, but also that mental and emotional mess. And I know for many listeners, they can probably relate that my messiest time was when I was in the throes of early parenthood. I'm a teacher. My wife was an occupational therapist. We had our first baby. And as soon as we had our first baby, we sort of felt like, okay, we've got this. We have this psychology background. We have this education background. I was like, I'm also now going to move from the classroom into administration because that's what you do when you're a teacher in order to make more money. It's going to feel great to have all these people that I'm supervising, all this positional responsibility. But what I found was that as I upsized my career and as we upsized our family, and then about a year and a half later added our second daughter to the mix, I suddenly felt like my life had sort of emotionally, mentally, and also physically imploded. And so recognizing that there was this mess that was surrounding me, I then had to think about, what do I do in order to tidy things up? And it really did start with my mental health. My wife and I were going to couples therapy because we were like, we've got to figure out all this stuff that's going on. And there was this moment, and I talk about it in the book, that my therapist looked at me and she said, Tyler, I really think that you would benefit from individual sessions. And I remember walking out and I was like, Emily, I think that she really enjoys my stories. Like she wants me to come on my own.
She just likes me better.
She just likes me. And my wife was like, that's because you have a lot that you need to work on, so that led to me deciding to take leave from my job because I just needed that sort of pause. But then 2 days into leave, I decided, why don't I rearrange our apartment? This is going to be so great. I'm going to swap bedrooms with the girls. We're going to create so much space, which then just imploded things. And I feel like oftentimes mess breeds mess. But if you don't confront the tidying aspect of your mind, it can really get in the way of other aspects of life, something like your physical space too.
So you talk about being tidy. It's bringing order to things. That's what being a tidy means. And you describe it as a personal process, but also a joyful one. And I thought, well, that's interesting because if my co-host were here today, I think she would say, oh, it's not joyful for me. Her messy set point is higher than mine. We talk about that all the time. And so is the process of getting tidy, is it joyful for everyone? Is it joyful when you're done? Or is the point that you're not seeing the part that's joyful when your house is a mess?
Yeah, so I think for many people, and even reflecting back on my own personal experiences, there were moments of joy with tidying when I felt like things were clicking. Like for me, when I sort of discovered this puzzle of my closet after we switched bedrooms with the girls, there was this huge wardrobe that I had to deal with and decide, is it going to obstruct the pathway of our new bedroom or is it going to block our window? And when I realized that neither of those are actually good options.
A door or a window.
A door or a window. I was like, I've got to figure out how to make the narrow closet that's 14 inches wide by 7 feet tall. I was like, can I make my wardrobe fit in there, all of my clothing? I was able to do that, and that felt like a huge tidying win. But yet, when I started to transfer some of these skills, these tidying skills to my professional life, when I was thinking about, I really don't want to be a school administrator anymore, but what does it look like to go to my bosses and say, can I return to the classroom in the same school and fold back in with all of the teachers that I had for years been supervising, that's a process of tidying that comes with a level of anxiety or stress or just this fear around what are all the hypothetical things that could happen. But what I feel like the joy from tidying that I found is when you feel like you can set clear boundaries for yourself and then you can work to keep those boundaries in place, I do feel like that's where there is joy. As I was writing the book and then editing the manuscript, I made the decision to leave the school where I had been teaching for 13 years and transfer to the school that was 6 blocks from our apartment in New York City. And this week, it's been months since the start of the school year. It is really hard to start over at a new place. You're learning new things. You have no real emotional support system. And it's taken about 4 months for things to start to click. And this week, I was able to start walking home on my lunch break and eating lunch at home because it's a 5-minute walk home. I have about 30 minutes at home and then 5 minutes back. And if you have kids, you know that if you have 30 minutes alone in your house without children, it might as well feel like 5 hours, 10 hours, I don't know. But like, it was so hard to make that emotional decision of, do I leave the place where I've been for 13 years and start new again? But yet, sometimes with tidying, you don't get immediate gratification, and it can come months later, but yet you can receive some of those dividends of a previous decision that you made. And that's why I think with Tidy Up Your Mind and Tidy Up Your Space, you learn a lot about yourself when you're sorting through that physical mess. When you are going through cabinets and opening drawers and figuring out what you're going to do in order to clear a space, there's so much emotionally that comes up. You can feel embarrassment. You can feel completely overwhelmed. You can feel resentful of other people that you may be living with. It brings up a host of really messy feelings. But I've learned that when you're tidying physical things, if you can sit with those emotions, you then learn how to transfer similar skills to other higher stakes aspects of your life that aren't as high stakes as, how am I going to go through all of these toiletries and figure out what goes in that medicine cabinet?
Right. That's so interesting because I was thinking like applying, if you're unhappy with your job and you want to be tidy, you know, my default thing would be like, well, you make it work. You deal with less, you fit what you can handle into what you have. But for you, tidying became something very expansive, which is take it all out and really look at it.
Yeah. And I think that when you start to pull out some of the root causes of that mess, and for me, even thinking about the school decision, like I had a wonderful school, but yet I had a different school schedule than one of my daughters who was in preschool. I had a walking commute, but it was 30 minutes each way every day, taking my 2 daughters on scooters along with me. And when you start to add up, it's funny because now I sort of talk about tidy dad time. And I know there was the trend online of like mom time or mom math, where moms were sort of calculating all of these different sort of aspects of their day and what this adds up to. When I started to do the like tidy dad time or the tidy dad math, I realized that 30 minutes to school, 30 minutes from school, that's an hour every single day. The longer school day, that starts to compound. Because I was at a different school, I had professional development in the summertime. That meant that I wasn't with the same summer schedule as my daughters. And when you start to add up all of these different things, it's similar to the physical spaces in our home, that we can accumulate material possessions and it works up until a certain point. But then, as you were talking about with your co-host, we all have different thresholds of mess. We have different thresholds of physical mess, mental mess, emotional mess, social mess. Like some of us really love those messy friendships that we have, where our friends are constantly sort of unloading on us, talking about their husbands, talking about their kids. But then sometimes you reach a point where you're like, I don't want to be around that negativity. I want to be around friends who, not that they don't address the hard stuff, but like they sort of have that positive outlook. They're encouraging. They're motivated to try new things. So I think for each of us, as we go through our own tidying journeys, which is the point of Tidy Up Your Life, you have to really be attuned to the messes that you experience. You have to be attuned to what your trigger points are, what your pain points are, and then work to tidy up the areas of life that make space for what actually matters.
Makes so much
to
sense.
you.
I'm talking to Tyler Moore, better known as Tidy Dad, and we'll be right back. Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE. Tyler, I wanted to talk about the steps that you have for decluttering, because I just tried a decluttering project and we didn't do our steps in the right order. And when I read your order of steps, I'm like, right, we missed the first step. Or I should say, the person I am married to missed the first step. So
yeah, so the order that I recommend is this idea of clearing first, which is removing everything from the area that you're working on. Then you've got to sort. Before you start deciding what to keep and what to get rid of, you need to sort into categories to see what you're actually dealing with. Then you can start to assess. I think that it's helpful to assess what you want to keep first, and then start to think about what you may want to rehome, move completely out of your space, put in a different area, and then you make the plan for what you want to do with the space. The thing that excites people most about decluttering is planning. Because we have hordes of stores that offer all of these amazing containers and all of these different systems. And you walk into a store when you're feeling like your house is a mess and you're like, if only I buy all of these things, I'm going to bring them home and it's going to make that closet so much better. But then what happens is you start to fit those individual containers in your space and you realize that those containers aren't going to solve all your problems, that it actually isn't going to help. And then you do this spiral where you're like, that project wasn't any fun. I'm going to throw those bins in, close the door, and I'm just moving on with life. So I do think the order of things matters. And I do think that process of clearing, yes, it can feel a bit overwhelming at first. And it should feel a little bit overwhelming because oftentimes you discover things. Like when I emptied the tiny closet that became the home for all of my clothing, we found pillows and kids supplies and baby blankets and pacifiers that we really needed in the middle of the night and like dehumidifier parts. I also found my wisdom teeth. They were surgically removed when I was in high school. And somehow those teeth had made them into the apartment where I was now living with my children a solid 10 plus years after I had had those teeth extracted. Why they were there, I don't know. But when you clear stuff, you always find things. But I do feel like when you're working with a partner, you have to withhold those feelings of judgment. What will stop a decluttering session from being productive is immediately if you start with, well, why do you always? Or the, I can't believe that you such and such. Or, my goodness, would you look at what this is? Sometimes you may feel those things, but you've got to clear it out, recognize that things are going to get worse before they get better. But as you start sorting, and then as you start assessing, you're much better set up to make a plan for what are you actually going to do with the stuff that you've chosen to keep.
And that's such an important mindset shift for me as well. The idea that you're looking at what do I get to keep out of these things? What do I want to keep instead of what do I have to throw away, right? Because your mileage may vary on that with your spouse or your kids or whatever. These baseball mitts nobody's using and nobody's touched in 5 years because they were in a decorative basket that you couldn't even tell they were in there. We're going to get rid of these. No, I want them. Right. That whole thing happens. But if you pull everything out and you start with what does everybody really feel excited about keeping here, that's a gentler way in, isn't it?
I think so. And when you start to interrogate the why behind you've chosen something, that then can help spur other decisions that you want to make. So like, for example, with my clothing, I live in New York City. I have an active commute every single day. And when I started to question, well, what are the types of clothing that I want to keep? I was like, I want something that has sort of that stretchable fit. I want clothing that I don't have to immediately iron as soon as I put it on and move through the house. I want a sweater that isn't like scratchy. I was like, I also don't really like wearing the color orange. So like, why do I have the random orange things? These are the running pants that I really like. When you start to interrogate the why behind you've chosen something, that can then help the decisions around the things that you're moving out that much easier in a way. And it's something that we try to do with our daughters as well. And I use examples from the book because so often parents, they're like, but when I ask my kid if they want to get rid of something, they immediately say no. And it's like, okay, well, you can interrogate the why behind that, but also you have to teach the fundamentals to kids of why we declutter, why we go through our things, what we're making space for. And I give an example in the book of like, starting with kids' pajamas. I feel like pajamas are something that is a really low stakes item for kids. Like when you start to use some of these skills of clear, then sort, then assess, then make a plan, kids can talk to you about their pajamas. They can tell you what fits, what seems to be too small, which are scratchy, which ones they don't ever wear. And then as you hone those skills with something as low stakes as pajamas, you then start to move on to gradually more complex categories. Because when you go straight for, in my case, the baby dolls, and I'm like, girls, you have way too many baby dolls. We got to get rid of all these. It immediately turns into chaos because they're like, Daddy wants to get rid of our baby dolls. Why is he trying to take them? We love them all. And I'm like,
everyone is an angel.
Every one of them. Because baby dolls to them are sentimental items. And it would be like if someone came to me and said, you know, all those mementos that you've saved from high school, you get to keep one. Only one you get to keep. And it would be the same sort of fight that I would say, which is similar to what happens with like the baby dolls in my daughters.
So what do you do when they have 35 baby dolls, half of them are missing an arm and they don't want to get rid of, they're all wonderful. What do you do in that moment? Do you step back? Do you try again?
One thing that you can do is to ask the follow-up question of, can you tell me what it is that you like about these? Let's talk about all these 35 baby dolls because this did happen. Talk about all of them. Tell me what you like, what your favorites are. What do you notice you play with the most? And it was so revealing because as we went baby doll by baby doll by baby doll, my oldest daughter was like, I really like the baby dolls that their eyes open and close. She was like, I want them to be able to go to sleep. And a few months prior, we had a hint of this because we walked into the playroom and she had taken glue and she had spread glue over all the baby dolls' eyes that just stayed open. And so they now had cataracts, which is a whole other issue for babies to have cataracts.
Such an expensive thing, yeah.
Especially when you have like 15 of them that have cataracts. But we were like, can you tell us more about this? And the baby dolls, their eyes opening and closing, like that was such a cool realization for us. And so then we were like, okay, it seems like you really like these baby dolls that have their eyes opening. What else? And she was like, I like the ones where you can actually take their clothes off. I don't like the baby dolls that come with the outfit on them. I want to be able to take it off and put something else on. And we were like, great. So when kids can start to establish criteria, and that's similar for adults, like when you can establish a criteria for the things that you're ready to move out, compared with the criteria for why you want to keep something, that's where there's power because you can apply that decision-making ability and kids are able to do that. They just have to do it in a kid-friendly way, in kid-friendly language. And so for us, the baby doll keep criteria was, can you open and close your eyes? And can you take your clothes off? Like that is a really silly criteria, but yet that helped us to narrow the 35 baby dolls down to about 17.
Right. It wasn't silly to her. And then for yourself, you end up with a drawer full of, you have 10 pairs of black yoga pants when there were only 7 days in the week. Or you have, my husband, this is years ago, but we counted his T-shirts, like the T-shirts you wear to like knock around the house or sleeping. And I think he had like 31 or something, like going back to college. And, you know, we're like, okay, there's maybe 14. You don't need 30 T-shirts. It's who are you saving these for? And engaging with that in a loving way is a good way for yourself, for whoever, was another good way for us to be. You call it the hypothetical someday.
Yes. And I was going to say that it relates to sort of a guiding organizational question that my wife and I always ask ourselves, or a tidying question, I should say, is what is the like hypothetical doomsday scenario that we're planning for within any individual category? Like for your husband, was he planning for this like doomsday scenario where he's not going to have access to a washer and dryer? All the laundry mats in the area are going to be closed. You know, at work, they have now changed the dress code where you can only wear T-shirts that have something printed across
Fiji
them.
Jungle Party.
Correct. Like, yes, is that what he is planning for? And so obviously a serious question in terms of doomsday situation, but also it can inject a little bit of humor where you're like, I have so many skin creams that it's literally as if the drugstores, the pharmacies, the department stores, whatever, are going to completely run out of lotion. And I'm going to need this supply for the next like 6 years. And I put that in the book because we found some old lotions and I was like, I'm going to use it. And what did it do? Like completely burned my face. So there are expiration dates on things, and having that sort of doomsday scenario or that hypothetical someday that you're planning for. Hypothetically, if I host at my house a coffee themed brunch where I'm going to have 35 of my best friends over and everybody's going to need their own mug, that's why I need these 35 coffee mugs. And it's like, no, seriously, are you going to have 35 people over at your house at one time? Or like everybody's phone, the battery dies at the same time. So that's why you need 25 chargers in the case that you have 25 friends over who all of their phones happen to die at the same time and they all need to charge their phone at the exact same time. So it's kind of funny when you think about it that way.
So when you move, so say you do, speaking as somebody with probably 25 chargers and definitely 30 mugs, I think where I get stuck a little bit is not, because I live in New York City too. The good thing about New York City is you engage with your stuff much more frequently. You don't have a garage, you don't have a basement, you don't have a car trunk. You just have, and in my apartment is a modern building, so we don't have cabinets. We have some, but ones we've installed, like there's very little space to hide stuff. And so you have to engage with it. And where I get stuck is not like, okay, I have to get rid of these coffee mugs, but even if I take them to Goodwill or if I throw them out or whatever, I have this guilt about the trash I'm creating, even though it was still trash sitting on my upper shelf not being used. You know what I mean? I'm pushing it out of my house. I'm moving my trash out of my house, and I have guilt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is this idea of establishing for yourself this cyclical decluttering calendar. That when you start to think across the year, month by month, categories of things that realistically make sense to get rid of in that particular month, or just to edit or sort of to go through, it then sets you up to steward those items to people who may be looking for them at the exact same time. So for example, October for us with kids is always the month where we go through all of our dress up clothes, because in October, all the families in our neighborhood are looking for different items for their Halloween costumes. Nobody's looking for new dress-up clothes really in November, but they all are in that month leading up to Halloween. The same is true with like winter coats. People look for winter coats in November or December. People are not looking for coats in March or April when the sun's finally out and when you're finished. And so when you start to think about your decluttering sort of calendar like a consumer, you're thinking about people who go into stores and like, when are stores putting out, and now it gets earlier and earlier and earlier, but when are stores putting out kids swimsuits? That's the time for you to go through your kids swimsuits. When are they starting to put out the winter gear, the snow boots? That's the time to go through it. And that's been, I think, the thing that's helped to eliminate some of the stress that we feel, especially with kids, because decluttering really isn't a one and done process when you have little children that you're living with, because they're always growing, their needs are always changing, their interests are changing, their sizes are changing. New stuff is always coming in, and you have to have a plan for the other stuff to go out. And so that decluttering calendar, it sort of helped to simplify things, because we know when is the month that we're going to be going through that item so that we can post it on our pre-loved group, or we can post it on our buy nothing group and give it to somebody who can actually use it.
Yeah. And it also frees you from the, I must organize all the things all the time, right? It's this month I'm going to worry about my Christmas decorations and my coffee mugs.
Yes, because it's not realistic. Like, if you can do anything as a parent for a sustained period of time without being interrupted by your children, the last thing that you're going to do is declutter your house. Like, I hope that you go out and do something for yourself. So we are doing it in these sort of spits and spurts. Obviously, you may have that season of life where you do the full scale decluttering marathon. And people do that. It's something that we had to do after I imploded our space. But the maintenance is really around that cycle, that we can remind ourselves, now is the time to go through these. But right now, it does not make sense to go through X, Y, or Z category. I may want to do it right now, but nobody's going to want it.
That makes so much sense. Okay, I'm talking to Tyler Moore, Tidy Dad, and we'll be back when we talk about when things get really hard. What do we do? My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com.
Hey there, I'm Kendra Adachi, and my show, The Lazy Genius Podcast, helps you be a genius about the things that matter and lazy about the things that don't, and you get to decide what matters. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to give you a new way to see. Episodes of the Lazy Genius Podcast are full of compassionate time management tips and permission slips to do what makes sense for you. New episodes drop every Monday. Follow and listen to the Lazy Genius Podcast on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Tyler, you talk about surthrival in the book. You know it when you hear it. I think I know what that is, but will you tell us about that and how we get through those seasons?
Yeah, so it's one of my favorite chapters in the book, and I think so many people can resonate with it because surthrival it's one of those seasons of life where you're trying to survive, but also find those moments of thriving at the same time. And I feel like parenthood, I'm almost thinking that it's less of a surthrival season and more of like a surthrival era.
Mm-hmm. Decade, right.
There are so many demands that are placed on us. And it's one of those seasons of life where we feel like our mental and emotional capacity is sort of outweighing what we can actually accomplish. And so we have to think about like practical things that we can do in order to surthrive that particular moment in time. And I know for me, like even talking about professional work, there's that case of the like Sunday blues that people can sometimes feel. And when I was in my messiest, it's like the Sunday blues quickly went over into the Saturday blues because of the impending Monday that was coming. And then it turned into the Friday blues because I realized that the weekend was going to be over before I knew it. And so one of the surthrival strategies that I adopted was this idea of joy plotting, which is being able to anticipate moments of joy throughout your week. And it's trying to identify little things that you know are going to get you through. It could be scheduling a coffee date with a friend. It could be knowing that you have book club coming up on Tuesday night. It's knowing that it's going to be really sunny on Thursday afternoon and you've scheduled where you can go for a run. It's as you're walking to work, sort of being attuned to the birds chirping and realizing that spring is almost coming. I do feel like I've had to train my brain in some ways because it's so easy to become completely overwhelmed by either the mundane or the struggle to balance work and kids and a spouse and still trying to feel like a human at the end of the day. And so surthrival is really thinking about, again, what matters most to you, and then trying to figure out those little bitty pockets of time. For me, especially when I was an early parent and then going to the classroom to teach all day, I realized that I had to beat my children to the game at waking up early. And I know not everyone is a morning bird. My wife is more of a night owl, but I was like, if I don't wake up before my children, I literally feel like I am on all day from the time that they wake me up. I'm then doing breakfast, getting ready for school. I'm then spending my entire day with children, some of whom just want to scream things at me. Then I'm coming home and I'm dealing with my own screaming children through dinner, bath, bed. And it's like, I realized that it was so overwhelming to think that from my first waking moment, my first chance of quiet time was like 12 hours in the future or more, 12, 16 hours in the future when I might be able to get my children to go to sleep. And that felt so defeating from the moment that I woke up. And so I gradually pushed back that morning sort of wake up time. And as my children have gotten older, it's gotten a little bit easier. But even this morning, I was up and I had an hour and a half to myself before anyone woke up and discovered me. My youngest daughter's 4. She didn't find me until about 6:40. And I was like, I drank my coffee in peace. I read a few chapters in the book that I wanted to read. I always clean one area of the house each weekday. This morning, I scrubbed baby doll faces. Going back to baby dolls, like I was scrubbing their faces and those cataracts and scrubbing their little hands. But like, I'm alone. It's quiet. And for this season, that is one of my survival strategies.
That makes so much sense. And being tidy and being intentional about making room for what matters. First, you have to realize that I need a little bit of alone time. I so feel that. I'm a morning person too, and I like my quiet time. And that's a strategy. And so you are definitely going to fit that back in the closet, even if some other things have to go by the wayside, right? The baseball mitts can't go back because you need to fit this block of time in every morning.
Yeah, and I feel like that's when the practical application of tidying is that it really can relate to so many facets of your life. Because one of the questions I get all the time, they're like, well, it must be great for you. Like, you're just so obsessed with tidying. You just love putting things away. And I'm like, sure, it gives me a little lift. I do like the feeling of control sometimes, but the point is not that my space is perfectly perfect, to quote Martha Stewart. There is nothing perfectly perfect about my apartment or perfectly perfect about my life. I don't have everything figured out. I experience my fair share of mental messes, emotional messes, physical messes. I mean, I live with 3 children, and currently my 4-year-old preschool teacher loves to give her homework every night that is cutting things out. So she's cutting and gluing every night. And I'm like, I see the value of cutting, but could we get cutting down to 1 night a week? And then we can trace or circle the other nights of the week. But my reality is that they're always sort of cutting. There are little pieces on my floor, but this is a season of life. And as Tidy Dad, what I'm trying to do is to concretely name for myself what's important, what matters most right now, and then be fiercely protective of that. Because right now, my wife, my daughters, my own mental health, my physical health, feeling like I have space for choice, for travel, for adventures, that is what is important. And I've had to really ruthlessly edit and declutter some of the other aspects of life in order to make space for what's really important.
And is the sort of minimalist, aesthetically pleasing finished product? I mean, you have some beautiful spaces. You share them on your social media and you make room for what matters in a way that's really lovely. Do you derive satisfaction from being surrounded by beautiful, neat, pretty to look at surroundings? Or do you think the satisfaction comes more from everything's in its place and you know where it is and there aren't things here you don't need? Or is it some of both?
Yeah, I think that there's a balance. I mean, I do think, especially when I think about New York City and sort of the grittiness that we are confronted with every time we walk out our front door, that there is something to coming home, regardless of where you live, and feeling like you're surrounded by the things that bring you comfort or the things that bring you joy or the things that trigger memories or adventures that you've had. I do enjoy aesthetically looking at a space and seeing that it's put together and tidy. But I also, on the flip side, enjoy knowing that if my daughter has been sitting and cutting at the table and there are all the baby dolls out in the playroom and there's the laundry that needs to be folded, that we do have almost this like safety net of systems to get things back to factory settings. You know that feeling when you walk into a space and like everything is put away? That's what I call factory settings. It's not often that things are just in back to factory settings, but as a family, we can sort of work to put those pieces back together. It's like tomorrow we have a photographer coming to take new family photos, which is wonderful. But there's also that little bit of like, oh my gosh, what room are they going to be taking them in? What outfits are going to be, what are we going to be wearing? What needs to be perfectly perfect? But the reality is perfectly perfect isn't a goal. For us, it's easily tidied versus always tidied. And I feel like that is a huge distinction. There's joy when you know that you can just like let the mess rain, but then knowing that you can quickly, if you want to, get it back to factory settings. That's sort of a barometer for me of whether I've achieved my goals for tidiness, if that makes sense.
I love this factory settings idea. On our podcast, we're always talking about going back to one, which is something they say on TV and film sets. And it just means you have to do it again. We have to go back to the beginning, reset everything, and try again. And there is zero negativity attached to that. That's just how it goes. We're just going to do it again for any of a number of reasons. and it's just what you do. And so when you're resetting a goal and trying again to yell less or whatever your goal is, you can do it without the like, why can't I stop? Like, why is my house messy? It's messy because you have small children underfoot. And what you do next is you restore to factory settings. You can do that when you want to. You know how to do that, but you can do it without the guilt that there is something out of place in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Or that there's something wrong with you, or you're not trying hard enough, or you're not like so-and-so down the block or in your building who always seems to have things perfectly put together. Because with my story, like I put on a facade for a long time that everything was okay. I would have breakdowns on the sidewalk almost daily as I was walking to school because I was so overwhelmed with life and early parenthood. But I knew that like block that I had to pull it together, that it was like, you got to dry your tears. You got to pull it together because nobody at school cares about all that other stuff that's going on. This is your job. You signed up for it. You need to pull it together. And I lived that season of sort of that fake facade where I acted like everything was put together, where I acted like my life was perfect, where I would say, oh, it's amazing, this life in New York City. We have these kids. Look at this beautiful, these seemingly beautiful rooms and spaces. And aren't the outfits that they're always in cute? But like, that was a front for some of the mental and emotional pain that I felt. And so once you've had that sort of breakdown moment, you then sort of learn how do you pick yourself up, but also not allow yourself to get to that place again. And it's reminding listeners that I'm a dad. Obviously, I wrote this book. I share as Tidy Dad on Instagram. I'm also a teacher, and like I'm still very much in the thick of it. I know what it's like to balance kids and career and trying to have a hobby and questioning to myself, do I actually have any friends anymore? Like as an adult, when is the last time I just called my friend or went out with someone or felt like I wasn't serving someone else's needs? I mean, I get it. And it's why I think a book like this is important, because there are lots of false perceptions of life that we're fed. There are messages that we're fed all the time that you're not doing enough, that you're not pursuing enough, that you're not successful enough or smart enough. And I think the underlying theme of this is like, you are enough. And when you come to that realization, it can then lead to this domino effect in other areas of life. And it's just something that I do want people to know is that if someone is experiencing those feelings where you're like, I just don't know if I can do this anymore, it's so important to reach out to someone, to get help, to just start telling your story. Because if I've learned anything, I mean, I'm a New York City public school teacher. I have 3 kids, but yet somehow when I started to tell my story, other people saw my stories as a mirror into their own lives. And they saw not the same reflection back, but just a glimmer of, I know what it's like to feel that too. And I think that when we share our stories with others, you just never know who you're going to inspire. And I had a moment several weeks ago at school, and a teacher new to me, because I'm new at the building, she came and she said, are you doing okay? And I had this moment where I just sobbed. It was 7:55 in the morning. We had to go down to get our kids, and it just broke me. And I was like, I'm sorry. It's nothing that you just did right now, apart from you just asked me the right question and you just saying, are you okay? I was just so overwhelmed with emotions, but that's what I needed at that moment. And so I think that that's important for listeners to know.
Our listeners will know after hearing this interview that this book is full of great advice for tidying up your life. It's practical, but it's also touching. It's also very funny. It's also extremely real. It's all of those things. And so tell us, Tyler, where we can find you, Tidy Dad, your book, and everything you do.
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm Tidy Dad. I also have a website, thetidydad.com. And then you can order Tidy Up Your Life wherever books are sold. I always say to go to your local bookstore. Bookstores are such precious resources. Our local bookstore is where my oldest daughter, crawled for the very first time. So now knowing that they're selling my book like it's just this full circle sort of moment. But wherever books are sold, but check out those local bookstores.
Tyler, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thanks.